Like, it's been a while since there's something in my face that's round. Hi there.
Welcome to X Marks the Spot podcast. The story you're about to listen to is all true. The only thing that has been changed are the people's names and their locations to protect their identity. Everything else has actually happened to myself and my guest in the story we are about to share today. And with that, let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to X Marks the Spot podcast. I'm your host, Will, and today my guest is Maricella.
Hello.
And we are drinking whiskey and Coke. And we're actually going to be talking about today on when we lost our V cards. And if you don't think that's your vaccine card, you obviously are completely wrong. It's our virginity. So we're going to be talking about that. And Mari, you have a very interesting story of basically a before and after. Please talk to me about your guy. Let's start with the beginning of how you guys met, and then we'll go into it.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on this show. I'm so excited to talk about this and just hash it out again. Yes, let's go back in time to 2006.
Ooh.
When MySpace was in its prime, okay? Because it was. Yes, so my first boyfriend ever. This is the guy I fell in love with. This was the puppy love. I met him on MySpace because I thought he was cute from his profile picture. I had a love, and I was such a sucker for emo boys. That was in my prime sing kid days. So I added him on a whim.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think back on whether or not I messaged him. I want to say he messaged me after he accepted my request, and I was so stoked for it. Here's the catch. He was in Michigan. Okay.
Oh, he was in Michigan at the time.
Mm-hmm.
See, I didn't know this part.
Yeah. And this is probably one of my favorite romantic stories because he accepted my request. We started chit-chatting. Chit-chatting led to buying the stupid prepaid minute cards so that I can call someone long distance.
So just in case for everyone who's already listening and is not in our age group and is completely lost already. So back in the day, there was this thing called MySpace. I'm not sure if you learned it in your history books, but it basically was the worst version of what Facebook is. It was just a ridiculous nothing.
Yeah.
It was just a social media thing. And it's funny because we didn't really have smartphones.
No.
So it literally was, we had to go on our computer, sign on, and we could chat with our friends and this and that. It was our first real social media thing that we could do.
Totally.
Which I love the most. And these prepaid phone cards, I mean, they're still in Europe, so most people hopefully will understand. But
yeah,
basically you go to a store, you buy some minutes, and you enter it in, and then you can call people for that amount of time. All right, continue.
Yeah. So after a couple of weeks of messaging back and forth, we definitely wanted to take the next step, which was phone calls. So it was good because I used to buy some, he used to buy some, and then it all really happened so fast. One thing I knew, I was graduating my senior year of high school, and I was on my way to college eventually. And I remember he mentioned that him and his best friend were going to come visiting at some point the summer of 2007. So I had just graduated high school, and I was super stoked to meet him in person. I was thinking, oh my God, he's going to come visit me. Will I like him? Am I cute enough? I had the anxiety, but it was good.
Did you have any fears that he was going to be older, or that he was going to be really creepy, or you were getting catfished maybe?
Yeah, I was afraid that I was going to be the creepy one, and I wasn't going to be what he expected.
Right.
But that it wasn't that way. I remember specifically it could have been a birthday party or going away party or a graduation party or a summation of all those things in June. And he came over to this party. And I was nervous as hell. We met in person. I remember I was like sweating, okay? Like I was so nervous.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember thinking, man, this emo boy is so hot. I think I'm in love.
Oh man, those. I mean, it's funny because the emo thing was in our time, and now it's coming back.
Oh,
It's a huge. It's the scene kid, like,
yes.
is coming back, and I find that almost weird. I mean, I love it because again, you and I were both super attracted to the males and females of that,
Yeah.
and I mean, amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But it's funny seeing it come back because I went, "Is this a joke? Like, are they making fun of us?" I went, "No, this it legit came back.
Of course.
It's a huge thing that came back."
Yeah, history repeats itself,
All the
and
time.
I'm glad that it is because it's a very nostalgic part of my life, and I won't forget it. But anyway, so this was before alcohol, so this going away party. I say those things because I believe I had a best friend of mine. I think she was moving away, so it was a combination of all those things. This was a party where we had Coca-Cola and chips, no alcohol. So it was interesting to
The regular child party.
yes,
Yeah.
you know, it was before we're 21 and stuff, but it was still a good party and we hung out and I remember thinking, wow, I really have a lot of chemistry with this guy. Like this was meant to be.
He's from Michigan and I'm from California.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's my forever.
Can I just say that him and his best friend, if I remember correctly, they drove all the way to California. Mind you, it wasn't just for me. His mom was living in Roseville. So he had another reason to come to California. He was going to visit his mom, come see me for the first time. And then we were going to take things from there. And it was great. So at the end of the party, I'm, you know, like telling him, don't go. I don't want you to go. And we share our first kiss. And I remember thinking we were so in love. And I remember thinking, man, I love this boy.
What is this? Some kind of teen drama on Netflix? Oh, he came all the way here for me. Don't go. Was it raining in summer and like you're just like and you had your mascara running down your cheeks?
The only thing that was raining are my tears from him leaving.
This is so dumb.
That was it.
I can see the reenactment right now. There's the two shot of both, and you're just like, "Don't go!" And he runs to you. He's like, "I never will leave you," and then he kisses you, and then it's like end scene.
End scene.
Credits roll.
Emo tears. That's what we were crying. Emo tears. It was good. We were kissing each other, and I were thinking, "Man, I love this boy. I hope to see him again." So then, fast forward to September. I'm moving to Santa Cruz for college. I just graduated high school, if I didn't already say that. So we did long distance, and I was obviously very loyal to him. I adored him. I absolutely loved him. Oh, by the way, his name is Goma. And I loved him so much that I was excited to chat with him after classes, after a week of work, because I was working in a dining hall, which I hated. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I was in love, and I remember, I'll never forget, this is my favorite part. So it's Halloween in Santa Cruz. I'm invited to some stupid dorm Halloween parties. I say they're dumb, but at the time they were so lit.
They're the best.
And they were my favorite time. And I remember Goma is texting me like crazy, calling me every second, asking me what my schedule's like the next day. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with you? You know, I work at that stupid dining hall. You know, I have classes on Monday at 3. Like, why are you asking me all these questions? And so, I still at the time was like, you know, filling out college, making new friends. And, he calls me finally and he says, I have a big surprise. You're getting a package tomorrow. That's why I'm asking. A package? How do you even know where to send the package? Because it was really weird to have anything sent to me package-wise on campus. Like, it was a shit show. So I was like, I never gave you my shipping address, Goma. Like, what are you talking about?
Interesting. Okay.
So then Festivities go on. The next morning, I wake up to another million text messages and calls. And finally, I call him back and I'm like, what is wrong with you? He's like, I'm in town. I'm in Santa Cruz. He surprised me. And I was like, my God, that's so romantic. Like this whole time I thought I was going to get a stupid package and the package was him. And I was so stoked and yet very nervous because I'm like, what do I wear?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what do I do? I had work. I was working at this pretty much at a student dining hall, just to make ends meet and stuff. And I remember I had to work until like 5 or 6. Pretty much my whole day is like screwed on a Saturday. And this was happening on a Saturday.
Of course.
He's in town with Greg, who he came with originally at that birthday going away party I mentioned. And so I thought, shoot, okay, well, now I have to let my roommates know that 2 guys are staying over. Okay. I lived in a triple, so I had 2 amazing roommates. And I'm like, how do I house these people? I got to be a host. I'm excited to see Goma. Like, ugh. And then I finally saw him. And I ran up to him and I hugged him and I kissed him. And I was just like, oh my God, you're actually here. And he says to me, oh, I'm not just visiting. I moved out here. I moved to Roseville.
Wow.
So I'm thinking, oh my God, this is so romantic. This guy from Michigan moved to California to be with me. Like, oh my God. Mind you, this is my first boyfriend, like legitimate, true boyfriend. I've had guys that I dated prior in high school, guys I had sort of dated before, but Goma was my real and first love.
Yeah, this was the first like as you said, we've all had the puppy love relationships. We've had the, we're like, this was my boy. But I mean, like, when you're 5,
sure,
you probably had like 6 girlfriends and boyfriends at that time. Like,
if that.
So yeah, I mean, depending on what kind of black book you got in your pocket right there. But it also gets to the point of what was real and what wasn't.
Sure.
And this was your first real one.
Absolutely.
And I love that because that you said after high school, right? You guys. So it was like, that's the time when you knew. And it's funny because I hear now it sounds weird that I'm saying like, around the younger ones,
sure,
but it's because I have, a couple jobs and at one of them, a lot of people there range between like 18 to 21.
Sure.
So I hear a lot of their stuff and they're just like, oh, I've dated a lot. I'm like, I don't think you've dated. And I'm like, you really did I went to her house. We went to my house. We went to the mall. I'm like, is that
right?
I'm like, that's the high school teen bullshit that we all went through. I'm like, but it wasn't the first one. Like, when it's the first one, because it's like this. You have those memories. You're just like, no, that was the real one. Like, I still remember those feelings. And I think it's kind of funny because a lot of people don't really recall that anymore. They're just like, no, I've dated a lot. I'm like, yeah, but they were just your dates.
Sure.
You didn't have something real.
Right.
And so, so sorry, continue. I just.
No, you're right. It was my first, and it was probably one of the easier ones because you had nothing to compare it to. You had no ex that you were trying to get over. Like, Goma was it. And so anyway, it was still long distance. He was living in Roseville. He had gotten a job and eventually made his way to Sacramento and then still had a job. And I was still in Santa Cruz. I still had Santa Cruz, my schooling, my classes, my life there. But it was such a treat for him to come and visit me when he did. And we made it work. And eventually things got really serious. And then I lost my V card to him because I thought, you know what? I'm going to be with this guy forever.
This is the one.
This is the one. But it had to happen. And I'm glad it was with him. I loved him. I trusted him. The feelings were mutual. And I'm blessed to have had that experience. And obviously I won't forget it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how serious it was. I was like, okay, he's the one. I'm going to give it up to him. And I did willingly.
I'm gonna take off my pants for him.
Absolutely.
It's
good.
it's great on that though, because there's been a lot of stories I'm sure you've heard with friends and everything too, where everyone has always regretted their first.
Yes.
Now, have you regretted yours?
No.
You didn't regret yours.
No.
Good. And see, I didn't either. So with mine, you know a bit about it because, funny enough, I actually met her through you, or I met you through her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah,
on mine, it was, again, it's fucking what? Yeah, 2000 whatever. It was like 2000. It could be 2002 from what I remember. And met this girl. Funny enough, she was dating one of my friends at the time, and we started chatting, and then they broke up, and then at that time I broke up with the girl I was seeing, and then so we started talking a lot more, and then I was introduced to you because you and I have a fandom of Legend of Zelda, which
nerds.
for anyone who's listening and is like, why did she keep calling him Goma? That is one of the bosses in Legend of Zelda, and what I'm gonna call mine is what was the name? Hang on. I already forgot. Manhandla.
Manhandla, sorry.
And so that's what I'm going to call her.
Manhandla.
It was very, So these are Legend of Zelda references. So if you're already like, I'm so much more invested in these two, you're welcome. So her and I met, and then she was just like almost like possessive of me. I remember you were telling me a bit about that, like because you and I were getting along so well.
Yeah.
She was like, well, don't take him. And you're like, what? You're like, no, we're just bonding. Like, it's nice to have a friend who's just as nerdy.
Yeah.
So then her and I started dating after a bit. It was kind of weird because like we just broke up with people and stuff and all this and that. And I want to say, again, it was the whole MySpace, everything. Like, we would chat as much as we could, and we would try to hang out like, oh, come visit me at school, this and that. Like, that was the other thing. She went to a completely different high school. So at times when I had my driver's license or my permit, I would go from my school to her before she got out to say hi, and like we could like kiss and stuff and like hug before she would have to go home.
Yeah.
Honestly, and it's funny because the more I think about it, that was also the team drama. Like, I'd be like, if I could just have 5 minutes with her, that would make my day. And it's like,
totally,
what an idiot. Like,
yeah, seriously, like, 5 minutes.
I'm wasting so much goddamn gas, like driving back and forth between this shit. I'm like, I should just be like, I'll just see you on the weekend. Like, now especially, I would absolutely be like, like, I'm only gonna see you for 5 minutes. Like, yeah, it's cute, but do you understand I got bills to pay?
So true.
Like, you don't think about that when you're young and in love.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to say it was, God, it wasn't even a year into it, and she brought it up about us finally doing it.
Yeah.
And I actually got scared. I was actually like, whoa, like, do I? Because, and it brought back everyone I know regrets their first. And so I was like, do I want to be her regret? I was like, do I want her to be my regret?
Sure.
And so I had all these things, and like, you overthink everything. And of course I was like, oh
my God.
All right, so this is what we're going to do. So I actually told her, and I didn't really give her like an ultimatum. It was more, let's think about it for a week.
Yeah.
In a week, if you're still like, I want to lose it to you.
Sure.
Okay, we'll try. So her and I, we talked about it for a week, and then the week was over.
Yeah.
And she was like, how are you feeling? I went, terrified. Because
sure,
not only did I have to go through that, I had to go to the store and buy condoms. And like, now I'm just like, here you go, I got this. Oh, I don't have bread. Let me get some bread too. Like,
yeah.
But as a child, and I'm sure everyone remembers this.
Sure.
Regardless of, even now, some people are like, oh, this is weird. Like, they're going to know I'm going to do it. Like, it's like, who the fuck cares? Like,
yeah.
Maybe that's just me.
Right.
But, when you're 15 and you're going into the store and you're trying to buy condoms because you're trying to be safe, and you're still like scared because you have to mention it. You're
sure.
like, can I get into the cage so I can get a condom? Like, oh God, yeah. I still remember that nightmare. And I actually think it was either that one or a time after that, but I think it was the first time. I could tell I was
Yeah.
like burning red.
Yep.
I was so embarrassed. And then it made it worse because
Right.
I had 2 old ladies waiting behind me.
Oh no.
And I was just like, oh no, no one look at me. And I'm like looking down. You know, I'm doing the whole child thing, like, oh, this is so weird. And I like took him and I left.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the cashier though. The guy was very cool. He understood. He's like, no. He's like, man, which one did you want? And I was like, that one. Like, just get me out of here.
Right.
But he was very chill. He's like, man, it's not a big deal. Like, you're being safe, and that's great. Like, don't worry.
Oh my gosh.
So her and I did, but we had to be sneaky, which was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it was always like her dad had to go get her mom from work, and I think that was like our window.
Mm-hmm.
So we had like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So like the second he left, I had to be like right there. Like sometimes I was just like a street over, like hiding in a neighborhood.
Oh my God.
And then and she'd be like, all right, come over. I'm like,
yeah.
And that's when it happened. And it was terrifying. But what was funny was, I think at that time they like hit traffic or something.
Mm-hmm.
So her and I ended up having sex for like 2 hours.
Oh, lucky.
Neither of us came.
Oh.
Which was so weird. So I was like, oh my God, I'm doing something wrong. And she's thinking I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah, sure.
And that was our whole time. Like every time we did, we never could with each other. And I'm not sure if it was we were overwhelmed or we were just like, oh, this is the first one or anything. But what was funny is I was like, oh God, I'm a disappointment. Like,
yeah,
like, oh, that was like a short time. Because, you know, you watch movies and stuff and you see like these sex things. You're like, oh God, they had sex like all night. Is that sex? Like,
sure.
Exhausting.
Right. I don't want that. But now I'm curious.
Yeah. So that was my experience with that. And then, well, I want to kind of jump into this part now where after you lose your V card, did you feel, I mean, obviously we all feel different. We have a certain glow and everything about it. Like, especially now after you have sex, you're like, everything's just prettier. Like everything's more Photoshop. Like it's just nicer to look at.
Sure.
Did you have any of that? Like there was like a special look to things, or you were just like, you looked at things differently. You saw people differently. Like, did you have any of that?
I definitely had this feeling of guilt, but I will say that's just Catholic guilt.
Ah, okay.
And I'm not saying that I'm super religious, or I had a super religious upbringing, but it was enough for me to think, oh no, I can't take that back. I had a dick in me and now I've lost my virginity. Well, fucking hell. I'm a woman now, right?
Oh no, Jesus is going to get mad.
So when it happened, and I won't go into too specifics, but I will say that it was in college, in my dorm room. Goma came out to visit me for a weekend or a few days or whatever. And we went around town. We were hanging out and having a good time with each other, and I had specifically taken off the weekend off from my stupid dining hall job, and I had so much time with so much fun with him. And we got back and my true roommates were asleep, like crashed out. And I remember one of them had this like ongoing fan for white noise. And I was like, oh yeah. So, you know, I showered, he showered, we went into bed, we fell asleep. And then, you know, he woke me up and it was, you know, we were making out. One thing led to another. And then it was Pound Town. While my roommates were both asleep in their bunk beds. Shame.
Did they wake up at all?
I think one of them moved, and I remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, we have to stop. And then I was like, no, don't stop.
Don't stop.
It's so good. You know, so it was good. We went about it, and we somehow made it happen. Bless that little fan with the white noise, because that helped me a lot. But you know, after all of that, I remember thinking, oh wow, this is happening. Okay, just let it happen. I felt safe. I felt loved. I
Yeah.
felt like no regrets. And the day after it happened, I remember I still had to go to work. So I'm clocking into work and I'm just thinking about everything that transpired the night before. And I remember thinking, okay, this is it. I'm no longer a virgin. And I'm just making omelets for students. Like, fuck, I'm no longer a virgin. Have a nice day, you. Here's your omelet. And this is college
Here's your
8.
omelet. I love it. Like, I'm making breakfast, but for a lot of people I didn't have sex with. Like, here's your food. Here's your food.
It was the greatest distraction I could ever ask for. I was like, yeah, sure. They put me in omelet, the omelet section. So I was making omelets. Anyway, so I clock out and I get a text from him. He's still here. You know, I told him to get lost. So he went around. I don't know. Maybe.
Hey, buddy, you're done with your business. Get out of here.
I'm going to work. I got to make money. Okay. You do whatever you need to.
Mama got what she needed. Get out.
Yeah. It was interesting. So he texted me and he was like, are you off work? I said, yeah. So I remember we met up in my dorm room, and at this point, both my roommates were gone. They were studying or in class, and he asked me like, "How are you?" And I remember thinking, no, I remember like borderline like tearing up because it was a lot for me to process, and that was just because of like guilt. But it wasn't guilt because it was him. It was just guilt because like that's it. Like I've lost my V card and stuff. So
also because you kind of grew up in like a Catholic home.
Yeah.
So there was the like, you can't lose it until you're married.
Absolutely.
And all that stuff.
I had it in my head. So I'm like, I can't lose it, but I did anyway. Here I am, 18 and in college, freshman. Yeah.
And I'm not married, and like,
totally.
I don't know if this is going to be a lasting thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it, he hugged me and we cuddled, and that was it. And I remember feeling safe and loved, like I said before. And, that's why I don't regret that I gave it up to him and whatnot. Now, I will say, I will preface too, that I was losing my virginity. He was not a virgin. He had lost to someone else. But it was one other person prior to me. So, it's not like he had a long list of people, but he had lost it to someone else. So that was kind of nice, because then I felt like he knew what he was doing, because sure as hell I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
This was a learning process for me. But it was fine. And after that, we went about our relationship. He went back home. I was doing my studies. He was working. And eventually he moved to Sacramento, where he had moved in with my cousin. And it was still this long distance thing. It was good until it wasn't.
Ooh. When did it stop? And what happened? Like, what was it wasn't?
We started to argue a lot more. I wasn't happy. I know that he wasn't happy. And it took years for me to figure out why. Like, he was a good guy. He moved here from Michigan to be with me. On paper, it was like the most romantic story ever. It was it was the perfect first boyfriend for me, because on paper it just it sounded and looked like a fairy tale. But honestly, we broke up February 21st or 23rd of 2009. And that year was a big transformation for me, only because I was segueing out of UC Santa Cruz. I had this epiphany, like, I'm going to go to fashion school. I'm moving to San Francisco. I'm doing all these great things in life. And yet here I am, unhappy with who I thought was the love of my life.
Yes.
And I realize now that he was a really good guy, but he just was not ambitious enough, and I needed someone to match that with me.
How long were you guys like together?
See, we met in 2006. We got officially together. MySpace. We made it MySpace official. June of 2007, and then I broke it off with him in February of 2009.
So you guys were almost together for like 2 years. But in a sense, you guys had this thing going on for 3 years pretty much.
Essentially, we had MySpace and again those prepaid fucking minutes. That's all we had. But yes, I had known him that long. And it was.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But what's almost just as crazy too is you at such a young age knew, man, this guy's not ambitious. I have to break it off. I mean, I'm sure you have met or know still there are people who they have those partners and they know it.
Yeah.
And they're still like, but they're nice. But it's like, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, that's great. It's like, that person's nice over there too.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're going to date them for the next 5 years. Like,
sure.
So it's crazy that at such a young age, you knew, like, I don't want this. Like, I want this, but with someone who actually has, like, I want this for me.
Totally.
Or is not just going like, yeah, man, fuck it. Like, if I, work here, great. If I work here tomorrow, great. It's like, at the same time, not also downing anybody who does that, but just realize, like, if you don't have any ambition towards anything, like, that means it kind of reflects on you as a person too, because that means your relationships could be that way too, wherever you want to go. And honestly, you could even be like, let's say with you and him, he could be living there in California, and then he's like, I'm going to move to Nevada. And you're like, it's like, am I going with you? Like, hey, yeah. And you would never know because he'd be like, well, I planned this. It's like, with me in mind or?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because for me, her and I only ended because it was the same thing. So again, her and I were fighting a little bit too much here and there. And again, it was because maybe we were just doing things too normal. Like, I was going to her place. She would come to mine. We'd go to the mall. Like, you can't do too much when you're young.
Sure.
I mean, and also if you're from our hometown, they cover this in the movie Lady Bird. And I thought it was the funniest fucking thing.
Yeah.
So I remember in a scene, the girl, she's like super into this one guy. And he invites her to hang out with them and like some of the popular kids. And she's like, oh, cool. Like, we're going to like ditch school and we're going to go do this thing. They end up hanging out at a parking lot. Now, I'm sure some people can relate to that.
Yeah.
But here's the biggest thing. So Mari's in my hometown. That was the thing.
Absolutely.
You did. You would find an empty parking lot and you and your friends would hang out. It was never near a park.
Nope.
It was sometimes like an empty church parking lot, like all these things that you would just go to hang out at. Worst part is they were like never really near a convenience store or anything. So like you would have to stop at like 7-Eleven or anything around the side to pick some stuff up to bring there. And if not, you're just like, well, I guess I'll suffer for 4 hours.
And you would.
And you would.
You would totally do that.
Everybody would do that. So her and I, we would kind of do those things, this and that. And I remember it started getting too sour on my end because I was like, God, we're fighting so much and stuff. And I was like talking to some friends, like, why don't you just end it? And I was like, no, that's the easy way out. Because I was not really raised in like a Catholic home or anything, but I was raised of like, things get tough.
Yeah.
And when it gets tough, that means it's worth fighting for.
Sure.
Now, that is true and also 100% not fucking true. Like,
we know that now.
Yes, you know that especially now. And anybody who's listening and is like, no, it's true. It's like, it's not. It can be, and it a lot of times isn't. Because if something is that difficult and it's like draining you and mentally like killing you,
right? It's
not good for you.
Right.
So I ended up breaking it off because I couldn't take it anymore. And it was such a struggle to actually like have anything done right between us after, obviously us losing it. And I felt bad at that time. And even now I'm like, I was like, was it the right thing I did? But I was like, it was. Honestly, in a sense, I should have ended it earlier. So maybe we could have picked it back up and been like, you know what, let's try this again now that we know our flaws. But we both stayed in it for the flaws without telling the other of like what was the issue. And it's because, again, when you're young, you're scared. Everything's scary. Yeah. You don't know what exactly you want. And then when you do, you're like, oh, but I don't want to hurt their feelings or anything like that. And so that was my whole thing towards that. And I mean, like you mentioned, like you knew that he wasn't ambitious enough. Yeah. And he just was like, it's whatever. But so when you ended it, was it like, I mean, it's dumb to ask, but like, was it a good breakup or was it pretty like you guys argued for like 2 hours kind of thing?
It was unexpected on his end, but I think that I had checked out a while ago and I was in it to see if I could again fight for it because it was worth it. Being in school, this really good school, all my classes, I was a business major. I realized like I had taken all of that serious. Now, I did make a career change and I did move to San Francisco where I was like, I'm going to fashion school. But I always took my studies to heart. Like it was all really important to me. And I remember, we were in, let's see, this was probably a year into Santa Cruz, an official year into our relationship. And I used to do summer school where I would take a class or two at Consumnes River College in Sacramento. And I remember I wanted him to take classes with me because I wanted to get him in the mindset of possibly going back to school. Okay. He never went to college. I believe he
interesting.
Graduated high school and then that was that. Right. But he had no intention in going to college. And I was thinking to myself, as I'm already a year into my studies in college, are you thinking about college? What do you want to do with your life? What do you want to be? Like, I know these are all loaded questions, especially when you're in the ages of I'm going to say 16 to 21, because you're in college. You're trying to figure out who you are. You don't know who you are. You don't know who you are until, in my personal opinion, at the end of your 20s. But that doesn't mean that you have to waste time. You can dive into college or classes or, boot camps or whatever, test the waters on all sorts of things so you can find out who you are then and see if that works out for you 10 years later. And I had that mindset and he did not. He was so proud of me, and I believe that was maybe one of many turn-ons about me. But I'm an ambitious woman, and I have been. It's been instilled in me since I can remember from my family, my parents. They want us to go to school, get a good job, do all these things, and I decided at one point, even as young as 19, 20, 21. I want a partner who matches that energy.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that he did. And I felt bad after a while because anytime I wanted him to take summer school classes with me or I was pushing school on him, I can tell that wasn't for him. He did not want that. He probably wanted it because I kept bugging him about it. But I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted him to want it because he wanted it. And I noticed that he didn't, specifically during that time. So I'm thinking, okay, do I continue to be in this relationship and just see kind of where life takes him? Or do I want someone who knows who they are, or at least knows that they're ambitious enough to want something out of their life, to want to be someone, and I knew that I wanted that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I wanted to make a mark in this world somehow, even as young as 18. And I remember thinking, I want that and I'm going to do it. And of course I fell in love with him. And I thought, okay, cool. Maybe I can help him, in a way where I could just give him a slight nudge. And that nudge was not enough. And I remember thinking, well, this relationship is not enough.
Damn.
So then in 2009, I was making big changes in my life. I was leaving Santa Cruz, UC Santa Cruz, my business major with a discipline in accounting after 2 years. And I remember thinking, I'm going to San Francisco and I'm going to be a fashion designer. And I'm going to do that because I know that's what I want. It's in my heart. I'm going to do it.
Absolutely.
And he was super proud of me. So the way we broke up, in a nutshell, let's see. So my brother had came out to visit me in Santa Cruz in January of 2009. I surprised him with a little birthday party on my on-campus apartment.
Aww.
And he came and visited me, and I was so stoked. And then at the same time, I had Goma come out and visit me also. And we had another friend, and she accompanied us to San Francisco. And this was all for my brother. Just a quick San Francisco trip over the weekend. And yet me and Goma, we're still fighting. And I felt bad because I wasn't trying to show that to anyone else, especially my brother. It was about my brother. It was for his birthday and all of that, right? So during that that trip, I realized, like, I'm just not in it. I'm not in it. I want out. I'm not happy with this guy. I feel bad and guilty because he did move out to be with me from Michigan. You know, he had decided to come out, and I thought, shoot, like, I really wanted this to be it. And, you know, at that age, like, you don't know shit. Life hasn't happened to you, okay? You got many more to go through.
You have a whole life ahead of you.
So, you know, I'm like 20-year-old me, it was, or 19 going on 20, it was like, no, I'm over this. I need someone to match my energy. So, come February, it was like a week and a half after Valentine's Day, and he didn't come and see me. I think he had work at the time. I remember thinking, I just got to call him up. I just got to break it up. So I did. I ended up calling him up, and we had a very long conversation, just catching up on life. He, at this point, I believe he was living in Sacramento, working. I was in college still. Mm-hmm. And then I brought it up to him in the way that I could. And I was like, listen, I'm not happy. And I can tell that was hurting him, because he was just like, well, how do we make this work? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to change? Wow. You know, he was so willing to change, to do everything I wanted him to. And I remember thinking, that's still not enough. You know, you got to live your truth. And our truths aren't aligning up right now, as young as we are. And I'm so sorry. I'm breaking up with you. And when I finally said the words, you know, there was a silence. And I remember thinking, I can't take this back. I just have to go through with it. It's what I've wanted for a while. I'm not happy. And so 2.5 hours later, I felt we were no longer together. And the way that we made that official was by taking each other off MySpace, because that's how we did things back in the day.
I want my half heart necklace that I gave to you back.
He was no longer in my top 8, and that was it.
We're never listening to Dashboard Confessional again.
Yeah, my God.
It's like Taking Back Sunday, taking back my heart.
I know. So it was a sad day for me, because I still had to go to work. And I did that all before I clocked in. And I'm thinking, fuck these omelets.
You're like, man, these omelets must suck, because I didn't get sex.
And you can tell I didn't put my heart into it. I'm like, you got some runny eggs and some ham and onions. Here you go. Fuck off.
They like look at it. They're like, it's not ham. You're like, I said, fuck off.
I didn't care. My coworkers were like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, give me some water. Like, I need to stay hydrated. So
put some rum in it.
Yes. I wish. Gosh.
Yeah, at that time, it would have been golden.
So, you know, after my shift, I went home and I logged into my blog spot and I started writing about this breakup.
Today was bad. I didn't make the omelets like I normally do.
Yes.
Boo hoo hoo. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So I never had any of that stuff. I had the MySpace, and it's funny because even when we broke it off, I think we still at that, like, what I mean, it's weird now that we say like we added our friend on there, but now it's a follower. Like, you have a follower back then.
Yeah.
That's just the, you know, other way of saying, like, people are stalking us. Like,
yeah. Right.
And no, we tried keeping it civil a little bit.
Sure.
But her and I just, you know, over time I was like, you got to knock it off.
Yeah.
Because it's getting bad. Like, it's getting pretty bad. And so, you know, I think I took her off my top 8.
Top 8, that was serious business then.
That was, dude. I remember, because like, if you were friends with somebody and they're like, yo, what the fuck? I'm not on your top 8. Like, are we not best friends? Like, who cares? Like,
Sure.
it sometimes can automatically generate. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I mean, I understand now too, because it's like if, you and I take a selfie for Instagram or anything like that now, and we don't tag each other, we're like, yo, what the fuck?
Absolutely.
We're kind of joking, but there's also
We're not joking.
but seriously, like edit it and tag me. Like
tag me. I took that photo.
Yeah.
I took it.
Put little photo emoji me.
Absolutely. Give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, that's what you got to do, everybody.
Of course.
But so, I mean, I don't want to leave it on a cliffhanger, but we're going to have to, because here's the thing with this story, everybody listening. There is now after all of this happened. And I'm not talking about, like, months later. I'm sure there is part of it too, but Mari has more of a 10 years later.
Yes.
They reconnected. And unfortunately, we're actually going to have to stop right there. But don't worry, because part 2 is just right around the corner.
Stay tuned.
But for right now, Maricella, thank you so much for joining. I hope everyone's looking forward to part 2, because I'm looking forward to part 2.
Me too.
And we for right now, we're not done with this, but we are done with part 1. We are going to say cheers to my ex. So cheers to my ex. And thank you so much for joining.
Of course, anytime.
Everybody.
Absolutely.
So thank you again for listening. And if you're going to listen to the next part later, enjoy the rest of your week. And until then, thank you for listening to X Marks the Spot podcast. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to X Marks the Spot podcast. Episodes are released every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Time. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms. Just simply look for X Marks the Spot podcast. If you have a story you'd like to share and be on the show, please feel free to reach out at xmarksthespotpodcast@gmail.com or DM us on any of our social media. Thank you again for listening.